Yo, what's going on, y'all? What's going on? I know it's early. But we in here. We live. We in full effect. But as y'all know, welcome to the first episode of Train of Thought. This will be pretty much a cast to speak on a lot of FGC stuff, ranging from various topics. This is just another thing I wanted to do. I know everybody's used to me showing them that godly Lars play, but also wanted to, be able to speak on certain topics too, because have a lot to say, and I just like conversing, with the supporters and the people that rock with me anyway, so why not? So today, first episode will be tournament mentality. And I know that's a you're like, tournament mentality, well, what is that? That is pretty much self-explanatory, is how to approach tournaments. I'll be talking from beginner aspect, intermediate, and advanced. And, I may be a little slideshow. So, like I said, as stated, tournament mentality. But yeah, it's pretty much in layman terms. It's knowing how to approach going into a tournament, and this is, like I said, no matter what level you're at, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and of course in the chat, like I said, y'all are welcome to share your tournament experiences. Definitely down to hear about them, and as I stated, we're going to start with beginner. Getting your feet wet. And, these are just the basic little starting foundation things that you may need to, really consider. How do I find out about the FGC? And that's pretty much, if you're on social media is a big aspect right now. In the FGC, because due to a multitude of things, but as far as from getting into tournaments and becoming a competitor, you want to utilize that resource greatly. So how do I find out about the FGC? Well, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, and you have a local community, or you can even look into the state that you live in, like whatever city, they usually have like a concise group on Facebook where it has, maybe somebody, of course, people running it and various members from the state in there, and they're posting events, chatting about it, things of that nature. So you want to join groups so you can stay in the loop about events, and this doesn't matter the size of the event, whether it's local, regional, all the way to major. So that's the way to stay up on things like that when you're just stepping into it, just getting your feet wet, and being a beginner. You definitely want to keep. Yo, Panther, thanks for the host, brother. But you definitely want to keep in touch with those groups so you can stay in the loop. Especially, like I said, just starting out, you definitely gotta, get good with knowing certain people, as far as TOs and things like that. Next part. Am I ready or not? Now, this is very open-ended because there's never really a true time to be like, okay, I'm ready. I try to tell newer players, you're never gonna know if you're ready or not unless you try. And this is with anything in life. You have to try. You can't be scared to fail. You can't be scared to go that dreaded 0-2. Nothing like that. You have to definitely be prepared for that possibility, and don't let that discourage you. Please don't let that discourage you, because you have to realize you are just starting out. None of these players started off at the level that they're at. A lot of the ones that you admire or look up to or respect, like even myself, I didn't start off at the level that I'm at. Like none of the players that you watch, they all had to start somewhere. So you have to realize that as a beginner, you shouldn't have these unrealistic expectations on your mind just starting out. You should definitely enter into tournaments when you're just starting out as a beginner. You should not plague your mind with thoughts that are more of a concern once you start to move up the skill ladder. So remember, you're just getting your feet wet. You're just stepping into it, and this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the journey. This is where we just starting. So don't overwhelm yourself, because as soon as you overwhelm yourself, you're gonna put yourself on tilt. You're going to get disappointed. You're going to literally defeat yourself before you even really got into it and enjoyed it. Because remember that one of the main keys is to have fun and to enjoy yourself too. So when you start placing things like that on your shoulders, it's kind of hard to do that because you're stressing yourself like hard. Now, learning the basics. Now, since you're brand new to this, you done joined the Facebook group, you done introduced yourself, you done did all of these little things. Now it's learning the basics of how a tournament works. Now, tournaments do vary as far as rule set, but we're just going to stick to the most basic, most known format, and that is usually double elimination. So you have a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket. So you have two chances in the tournament. Technically, you have two lives. Let's just put it like this: you have two lives in the game. So if you do lose one life, you do have another one. You have another chance. Also, during the bracket run, there's usually 2 out of 3 match settings. 2 out of 3. So the first person to get to 2 out of 3 matches, or the person to achieve 2 wins out of the 3 matches, moves on further in the bracket. And then once you get to winners finals, it turns into 3 out of 5. So the first person, or I should say the person, to reach 3 wins out of the 5 matches moves on. And then that person who wins the winner's side goes to grand finals, and then the loser's side of the bracket would then continue, and you would go ahead and progress all the way on to the next stage, which would be losers finals, after you make it through the remainder of losers bracket. And then whoever wins in losers finals then goes on to grand finals, and then those 2 players would play, and then that would decide the entire tournament. So that's pretty much like the basics, the basic basis of tournament setup, stuff like that. I know a lot of new players, they get intimidated, or don't think they, like I said, bought up Am I Ready or Not, or I don't fully understand. Well, this is the most basic part. And then the other thing about it is, I was just getting to that, Panther. Now, sometimes in grand finals, now remember, I mentioned there's a winner side and there's a loser side. So, the loser who makes it to grand finals on the loser side has to win 2 sets, whereas the winner on the winner side has to win 1 set. So, again, remember when I mentioned that double life, the 2 lives aspect, where the winner has that breathing room. So if the loser happens to win the first set of 3 out of 5, okay, the winner still has another chance. Whereas for the person on the loser side, is do or die. So in grand finals, that's what makes the grand finals probably the most unique set out of all of the matches you're gonna play in tournament. So as a new player, that's important to keep in mind and understand. And like, even you just so happen to make it to grand finals, which would be dope as a beginner tourney player, and you just getting your feet wet and just getting into it. Yeah, that'd be amazing. But I'm trying to keep it real. Most beginners, usually don't make it that far. Usually, you have the rare anomalies that do. What's up, Magus? What's going on, brother? But that's the basics as far as how a tourney would work, bracket wise. Now, of course, the other basics is registering for the tournament. There's usually a site or some little portal that you can use to register. You would use your gaming tag, so whatever you like to call yourself while you're playing. You pay your fees, your venue fee, and then the tourney pot you would contribute to. And in some instances, tourneys usually have pot bonuses. And those usually come from either sometimes the TO themselves or companies that could sponsor the event, and things like that. Ghost Kim, what's up, man? How you doing? But yeah, that's as far as the basics of getting involved and entering tournaments. That's usually how it goes. That's the process of that. And then you hear me mention TO. TO is short for tournament organizer, or the person pretty much running the tournament in general. And then you have the bracket runners, which is the people who run the bracket that I mentioned. And you also have things called pools. Pools is just the group of players that are in the bracket. And in order to advance further in the tournament, you have to make it out of said pool. Like, think of it as like the NBA or the NFL, where they play through the beginning part, which will be the season, and then if they qualify to make it out of the season, they would then make it to the playoffs. And then you play through the playoffs to get all the way to the end of the playoffs to get to the championship. Then once you get to the championship, oh yeah, Panther, I'm about to get to all that. But yeah, then you play through the playoffs to get to the championship, and then of course the grand finals is the championship. Like, for example, the Super Bowl, the 49ers and the Chiefs performed well through their season, which is the beginning part, as you would say, the beginning part of the bracket. They made it to the playoffs, which would be, like, depending on the size of the tournament, this part could vary. So, like, you ever hear, top 48 or top 32, top 16, those parts would be considered, like, and then top 8, of course. those would be considered like the playoffs. So you navigating course through those parts till you get all the way to grand finals, which would be your Super Bowl, your NBA finals, your World Series, whichever it may be, the championship part. Now, as the homie Panther mentioned, which was I was about to get to, was tournament etiquette and showing up on time and all that good stuff. So, tournament etiquette usually falls into, not cheating, not being a bad sportsman, not putting your hands on other players, foul language toward players during matches, things like that. So pretty much act like you got some sense. What's up, Catch? What's going on? But pretty much, acting like you got some type of sense. Of course, being on time for your pools. Pools do have timetables that they do follow. I know most of them tend to last in a 2-hour block. So if you have a 10 a.m. pool, check-in is usually 10 minutes before. So if your pool is at 10 a.m., you check in at 9:50 with the bracket runner that I mentioned. They check you off, make sure you're there, and then you will wait 10 minutes until the actual event starts, and tournament. There you go. That's at the very least, the very basic. That's just knowing everything laid out like here and there. And as y'all see, the last pointer that I got right there, it is time. So you've now learned all this information, learned how the tournament runs, who runs it, the bracket process. Like, you done learned all this information. Now it's time to go to one. It's time to head to one. And like I mentioned earlier on, you're a beginner, so don't overly stress yourself out about, I don't know if I'm gonna do well, I don't know. Just get your feet wet, get the experience. If you just so happen to do well, that's just a bonus. That's the icing on top of the cake. If you just so happen to do well. I mean, I know all of us want to, when we're beginning and just starting off, we want to get out there and win immediately, because we are. If you're a competitor, at least you think like that. But since you're a beginner and just starting out, you gotta take it one step at a time. Because, like I mentioned, all the players that you look up to, they didn't start off like boom, winning immediately. Like, you kind of have to be like a freak of nature to do that. Like, 'cause I don't know no player that looked up to that immediately just won. That would be pretty ridiculous. But so we done went over all the beginner stuff, getting the feet wet. So you're wondering, like, well, what's the next tier to go to? The next tier then would be intermediate. Time to level up and grow. So the first part I'm gonna touch on as far as this part is creating and sustaining connections. And by that I mean, I briefly brought it up in the beginner, and now we're gonna touch on it a little more in detail here. Creating and sustaining connections is pretty much, getting to know the people you need to know, as far as TOs, community leaders, things like that. These connections are important to establish, just to further help get your name out there, get good with venues. Like I said, if y'all have like weeklies, locals and stuff like that, getting good with them learning who they are, learning who even runs the venue, TO, like all these things fall into that boat. And once you get that, you get more comfortable coming around. You start to become a regular, and you begin to establish, that nice, good relationship, that nice, good connection. So that's important. A lot of people overlook that when it comes to even approaching tournaments, because you have to realize when you have that kind of relationship, it makes the environment a little easier to be in. Just off that, because most people just look at the playing aspect of it, which is important too. You have to be comfortable playing competitively, but the other half is, in order to feel comfortable even while you're playing, you have to be comfortable in the environment that you're in. And creating and sustaining those connections can help you cruise through that water and doing that. It definitely can make things easier. Next, now we gonna transition back to the playing side. Oh, you are absolutely correct, Panther. Etiquette does play a part. Like I mentioned, knowing how to, pretty much having some type of sense, knowing how to communicate with TOs, fellow players, person who's running the venue, all that falls into that. So etiquette will always be an important factor when you are going into tournament. It's always important. Of course, people would say, well, what about the trash talk and stuff like that? Look, that's cool. That could make playing in the matches fun. But as long as you keep it within the game, as long as you don't, get personal and bring up stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the game. Because, we know how that can get hairy. So, definitely keep in mind your etiquette when you're at these events, because you definitely you don't want to end up in band status and you can't even come around your local community. That would suck. That would greatly suck. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Then you make the whole environment uncomfortable for everybody else, and as I mentioned, you're not going to sustain that connection at all. And then people not going to want you around. Yeah, we don't need that. So, but back to that second one that I was touching on, finding training partners. So you got these connections that you've established and all that you created. You starting to, get familiar. Now you need to find people to regularly play with. And as far as skill level, it's cool to at times play against advanced people, but quite personally, I recommend you finding people that are around your skill level per se, because that'll help your growth be a little more exponentially fast, because when y'all around the same skill level, y'all can kind of bounce off each other and help each other out, and eventually grow and crack whatever ceiling that you're trying to crack. The best Dialect, what's up, man? And Laza, what's going on? But the best training partner is usually the one around your level. And not saying that you can't play with a beginner or an advanced, but if you want the best and most consistent, quickest rate for growth, find somebody that's about the same skill level as you. That's my opinion. Because beginners, you can learn from every player, but when it comes to growth, you're not gonna see the most unless you train with somebody that's the same as you. I'm good, Laza. Thanks for coming through, tuning in. Definitely appreciate it. But yeah, the person that's around your skill level, like you learn, you'll be able to bounce that energy. You'll be able to bounce that back and forth a little better, in my opinion. That's the way you're gonna see, because a lot of players be talking about, my growth, it's not happening fast enough or consistently enough. Because here's the thing, as I mentioned, you can learn from beginners and even players that are exponentially better than you, meaning way advanced. But with beginners, you have the potential to possibly autopilot, because since they're beginners, they don't fully understand what you understand, and stuff is going to work on them that wouldn't work on a player at the same level as you or a player that's higher than you. So that's why I say it could hurt you just strictly playing those type of players, because then you try to move up that ladder and then you start getting bopped for the stuff that you thought you could get away with, and that's when you're dealing with beginners. So this is why, to me, the quickest growth for players would be beginners play with beginners, and then as you gradually get better and start to cross over into intermediate, then you start playing intermediate, and then same process applies. And then when you start to move out of there, you then creep over into advanced, and so on and so on. But that's the way the skill ladder works. But effective training partners, I think, that's the best way to go about it, in that manner. Next, create goals. Now, goals can vary. In tournament, like I said, in the beginning, you're just getting your feet wet, and then once you get past that point, now you're like, okay, I'm going to try to go 1 and 2 now. Then I'm going to try to go 2 and 2, or then I'm going to try to do this. Like, creating goals when you approach tournaments. That's the steady, the slow and steady way to get better and better and better at tournaments. And eventually, once you start to meet those goals, then create a new one. And then once you achieve that, it's pretty much, this is what I like to call a progressive ladder. So once you create one of those, then you'll get better at traversing, navigating through pools, the beginning part, because that's the part where a lot of players tend to struggle at. Like those players that consistently go 0 and 2, consistently go 1 and 2, 2 and 2, however your performance is. For the 0 and 2ers, I would just definitely focus on getting that one win. If you just so happen to be at a tournament that has a stream, or if you have your supporters and friends with you, ask them to record your matches. And one goal you can set would be, if you are going 0 and 2, would be, okay, study the footage, see what you're doing wrong, and how can I prevent myself from going 0 and 2 at the next tournament. And once you do that and start applying yourself to it, okay, you go to that next tournament, hey, I went 1 and 2. Okay, that's progress. Remember, this is slow and steady. This is a progressive ladder. So ladders can take time to climb. And the best way, and of course the best way to navigate a ladder is to be patient, because we all know that's like when you're building a house. And you're starting from the ground up, and in order to further move up the different levels, you have to climb the ladder. Now, if you try to climb too fast, you have the potential of falling and hurting yourself. And the way I could correlate that is those players who, okay, I'm fresh to tournaments. Yo, I gotta make it out of pools like first time. Now you're moving too fast. And then you don't pull off that and you're now disappointed. Now you don't know if you want to keep playing. I'm not good enough. All these little bad thoughts start to enter into your head. But that's because you kind of tried to climb that progressive ladder a little too fast. Create goals. Short term, okay. As I mentioned, have your friends or whatever. If there's no stream, but if there is a stream and you just so happen to make it to the stream, go back to that channel, watch your match, see what happened, and consistently study it. And then me personally, I would say while you're watching those matches, sit in practice mode, see what they were hitting you with, and try to recreate the scenario as close as you can and explore your options. Most beginners, when it comes to tournament, they don't do that. Remember, this is not so much as being an overall player. This is approaching tournaments. So, starting off, this is something that I definitely recommend when it comes to tournaments. Review that, and okay, now you have to fight. Say you're at your weeklies, you then go back that following week. Now you went 0-2 last time, and now you got to fight that demon again. Now, whatever way you got your footage and you review, you practice, you did all this, fight your demon again. Hey, you just so happen to beat your demon this time. Oh, hey, now I gotta win. The guy that sent me to losers, or possibly put me out of tournament, because there is a such thing as double jeopardy, and by double jeopardy is losing to the same opponent twice. But guess what? You beat them this week. So not only is that gonna feel good for your confidence, but you achieved your goal, which is, like I said, a gratifying feeling. Now you should just repeat this process. It should be an ongoing process. Like I said, that progressive ladder. So until eventually you reach the top. And which leads to the next part as well. Always ask questions. Always ask questions. And talk to especially advanced players. Talk to them. Ask them, how do you treat tournaments? What is your regimen, as far as tourney day? Like, what do you do? What puts you in that I'm ready to play? Like, ask these kind of questions, because remember, tourneys are a block of your day that you have to be ready to traverse and go through. So, eating well, making sure you're rested and your mind is clear and you prepare to play. Or if you looked at the brackets and you've seen your opponents, could you possibly study up on them? All these things embody the tournament experience, but you really won't start thinking like this until you at least hit this level, which is intermediate. You begin to think like that. So you always have to ask questions, like always. That is important. That is how you're going to level up and grow and get better at playing tournaments. And to the point, where it eventually becomes second nature. And when it becomes second nature, now that gut in your stomach, don't get me wrong. no matter what level you reach, you're always going to have a nervous factor. It's just that as you get better at participating in them, you'll be able to play through those nerves and, conquer that. And that just goes with getting comfortable. That just goes with getting used to playing in that format, and it just comes with time. That's why I tell players, because the newer players tend to ask me a lot, like even in my community, when they coming up, well, how do you, how are you not nervous, or how do you play? I said, I'm just as nervous as anybody. It's just that composure and mental fortitude that I have that allows me to not show my sweat. But trust, every player is nervous, especially, in tournaments, because most of the time in tournaments, you're playing players you don't know. So it's already the fear of the unknown. You have to win an assorted amount of matches in a constructed set. And of course, we all know the end game is, of course, to win the whole thing for most people, if you're competitive. But of course, you also have those people that just like being around the environment too, because that's important. Because a lot of people like to bag on people that, all you do is go 0-2. We can't be like that toward them, because they may just simply like being around the tourney environment, which goes back to what I said earlier, creating and sustaining those connections and just being around the tournament. That's part of it too. Those people, the little guys, as some would call them, they're important too. Everybody in the tournament is valued and important. So keep that in mind. Of course, playing in tournament, it's competitive. It can be competitive. And like I said, if you want to, further advance and grow, it's a process. It's a process. So that's part of why it's always important, like I said, to ask questions and get insight from various players, no matter what. Because, like I said, you can learn something from anybody. You can't have that mentality that, because you tend to see this from people that are like very established in a lot of cases. I've been doing this for a long time. They can't tell me nothing. No, you can't be like that. I say you can never be like that. Because that kind of arrogance, that kind of, it drives people away from even wanting to be around. Like I said, going back to, creating and sustaining them connections. When you break that connection and people stop coming around you or don't want to be around you, then tournaments, could decrease in numbers, and then, local community stops playing with each other and things disband, and all of that begins to happen. So you don't want that, especially if you enjoy coming out playing and have built, found training partners, this, that, and the third. You don't want that to happen, and then everybody gets clicked up, and then nobody is really functioning like, it's not functioning like a community. Therefore, when the community isn't functioning, then no more tournaments, because nobody wants to come out and play. So that, yeah. And that's just at local level. It gets bigger when, regional and then major. There's different levels to that even, of course. But like I said, we're just keeping it here. But always ask questions, though. That's important. Doesn't matter what type of question it is, who you ask, always ask questions. So now, that was intermediate. So we've reached this point. Now you're at a point, okay, I'm getting comfortable with this. I done been to a nice little amount of these. Catch us. Oh man, that's a question though. You know, it's a funny way of asking it, but that's a question. It's a valid question. I can't say that question's stupid, but yeah. But you've reached this level. You've reached that. Now it's time to move on to the next part of the ladder, which would be advanced. Now, advanced, I'll say this is first one, that keeping room for improvement. And by that I mean allowing yourself, again, like I said, asking them questions and taking in the insight. Top grade. Let's see, in tournaments, I don't know, because you haven't really been that competitive when it comes to tournaments. Like, you come to them, but, you know, I think you just like being around the environment, which is cool. That's cool. But since this is focusing strictly on tournament mentality, meaning, you know, dealing with tournaments, yeah, that's a different case. That's a different scenario. But advanced, keeping room for improvement. So, like I said, intermediate, like I said, these parts of the ladder transition. So, keeping room for improvement. You're wondering why this is in the advanced part. Well, advanced tend to, just like that joking scenario I just did, I don't know, you can't tell me nothing. No, you have to allow yourself to open those doors to improve in any way in tournament. The way to improve your process as far as navigating the pools. Once you advance your mind state when it comes to that, like I said, the navigation will get easier. So the first part of the bracket, which is usually the season, you are not a beginner, so get your ass on. Get your ass on. You know what, KJ? I might allow you to swing. Nah, don't ban them. Don't ban them. Don't do that. Nah. But keeping the room for improvement. Like I said, being able to navigate the pools better, that can help you. Prepping for tournament. That's a big one. That's a big one. When it comes to that, advanced players that have been doing tournaments for a long time are usually pretty good at prepping themselves, and that actually is a more so advanced thing, because when you prep yourself for a tournament properly, that makes going into tournament that much easier. If you follow me, like, okay, you know how to study your footage. In case, and it doesn't matter even if you won or lost, because to me, I tell myself it's always important to study when you lose or even when you win. You know, understanding why you lost or understanding why you won, or if there's ways to make your win even cleaner, you could do that. But again, a beginner's not going to think like that. Somebody just getting into it, they're not going to view with an outlook like that. It definitely takes some advancement and growth to be able to approach and look at it from that aspect, from that view. So as advanced, when you're advanced, you keep that room, you keep that part of the room open for improvement. You know what I'm saying? You allow yourself to advance, you allow yourself to grow and get better at participating in tournaments. And that alone, doing that, can lead you to faring better in the tournament. Because people tend to misconstrue overall just being a good player and then overall being good in tournaments. There's a difference. Being a great player or a good player or whatever, that's just the foundation. That's the start. But you can see players that are quote unquote good, meaning they win a lot in casuals, but then when it comes to tournament, their track record isn't that good. I know everybody in this chat has heard of that before. Oh yeah, exactly, Panther. Talking to your community, which, like I said, the intermediate part, we can briefly go back to that. Creating and sustaining those connections, and like I say, even with your training partners, just having those conversations and asking questions. Like I said, this all can intertwine with each other. Exactly, KJ. You can play good in casuals but crumble in tournaments. So like I said, you have those players that are very strong in casuals and can play good in casuals, but when it comes to tournament, they're not performing as well. And part of that, though, is pressure. Pressure is added because, let's be real, a tournament, there's something on the line. You know, money, pride, all these things are on the line. So that can make somebody fold. So again, keeping that room for improvement and going back to asking questions. Well, Goldie player, well, how do you navigate the tournament the way you do? And what's some things you could do to not crumble and fall victim to that pressure that you're feeling and experiencing? Because like I said, every player goes through this. No one is not nervous. No one does not feel pressure. There's no player that plays in tournament that is immune to these things. Because you have to realize and remember, we are all playing in this tournament. So we're all feeling the same thing. None of us are exempt from this. It's just this player might be better than this player at dealing with it, then this player might be better than that player at dealing with it, and so on and so on. But this is why I say it's important to keep the room for improvement, because the more you get used to that, said, I am a mixture of the two. I'm all right in casuals, but in tourney, I'm A. I have improved, though, 2-2 at ABO and DH after going 0-2 at F. Well, see, yeah, that's progress. That's progress. And, Panther, with you being part of that very, very strong Atlanta Tech community, you have a lot of experience and people around you that you can ask questions as far as, well, what's the better way to approach these tournaments? What do I do? What are things that I could do to myself or do for myself and things of that nature? And that allowed you to have those stronger performances. And like I said, that progressive ladder that I mentioned earlier is part of that. So you are making the climb on that ladder, and you're climbing it steadily and surely, properly, honestly, if you will. And as you continue to do that, you're going to see consistent growth, and that goes to that's part of advanced as well. But one of the other parts I brought up, maintaining stamina and endurance. Now, another reason why certain players may not last is Cooper. What's going on? Good morning. Hold on. Let me look at what's so. That is something that I want to work on for certain. Just longevity and using my nerves in favor. It's funny you said that because we're going into that right now. Maintaining stamina and endurance. Now, you know how I brought up a player being good in casuals and things like that. Well, even though I said, yeah, the performances may differ, even then, they still, in a sense, go hand to hand. Because one thing that I love about our community up here in Michigan is the homie High. Shout out to High. Oh yeah, be sure to follow his Twitch channel for his Tekken school, www.twitch.tv/Hitaki Kakashi. I may just put it in the chat. I don't know. We'll see. Or I may just bring it back up at the end of the cast. But shameless promo right there. But anyway, one thing that he started was the ranking battles. Now, Atlanta kind of does something similar, but not exactly the same as us. But as far as us, we run a 1st to 10 ranking battle. Now, these are good because they can help build your stamina, they can help build your endurance, and you can also communicate with said player and ask for tips that you can take with you and go to tournament. Said, need a cigarette? No cigarette. Just drink water and think cigarettes are bad for you. That was a shameless truth commercial moment. Kids, cigarettes are bad for you. So, but anyway, those sets, I mean, you can do what you want to do. Just as your friend, I'm going to tell you those things suck. But you can do what you want to do. You're grown. But these sets, however, these 1st to 10s, they can help build stamina and endurance because there's so many matches and your mind is so invested. It's going to allow you to better your decision making, problem solving, all that type of stuff. And these are qualities and things that you need to apply in tournament, because I hear from a lot of players I hear when it comes to tournaments, they get gassed and they can't hold up. Like they they play so many matches, traverse so far through bracket, and they don't have the stamina or steam to hold up. And you have to get better at maintaining that. And of course, like I said, there are ways to do that. As I mentioned, the ranking battles, it's not only a way for us to improve, but it also helps build that stamina and allow you to maintain and make it through tournaments. Because like I mentioned way earlier in the cast, tournaments can be a long day, a long process. And said I had to. Oh yeah, those sets are a test. Yeah, exactly, KJ. I mean, it's being able to make it through that. It's an Iron Man thing. Cause I'm gonna tell y'all this. My origins of coming into the FGC is the group Korn, and at the HQ, we used to do 1st to 50s and 1st to 100s. Of course, not in the same day, like it would differ, but we used to do Iron Man sets. And because of us running those intensely long sets, all of us navigate through tourney quite well because of that. I'm really thankful. I'm very thankful for those, because it's so easy to sit in tournament and just navigate and cruise through. Like, it's way easier than what it would have been had I not done those. Not saying that everybody has to do that, because it takes a special type of motivation to run a set that long, because we used to do those. We would be playing from the previous day on into the next morning. Sun be coming up and all that, and then we'll go get some Coney Island, and then either go home after that or possibly continue playing a little longer. Yo, Dom, what's going on, brother? Said this is dope. Hey, I'm glad you're enjoying it. This cast is one thing I want to start to. It's a way to further interact with y'all too, because I like interacting a lot with my supporters and stuff. So that's another reason why I started this cast up, and just to help spread information too, and even of course have fun, and like I said, converse with y'all. So this is a way of doing it. So this cast would be another thing that I do to further, establish the connection with y'all. So yeah. But like I said, maintaining the stamina and endurance, that's important in tournament. You have to have that in order to get through it. And because tournaments, like I said, the days can be long. You're putting a lot of strain on your mental, especially playing so many matches and playing opponent after opponent, different play styles, different characters, matchup thing. Like all of this is happening, and you have to have the stamina and endurance to do that. And this comes with a time and experience type of thing. That's why I put it in advance, because as you become advanced, your build becomes stronger, and you're able to make it through these tournaments and play in them that much better and become a better tournament player. Which leads to the next one: consistency. And this is pretty straightforward. Constantly going to the tournaments, constantly applying everything that was mentioned in beginner and intermediate. Smooth Treble Main, what's going on, boss? What's happening? Thanks for coming through. Thanks for tuning in. But but applying everything that you learned in the beginner and intermediate section. Consistency. It's just doing these things over and over, and that alone will help you again be better at dealing with tournaments. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Just trying to be informative. I know I've been doing this for a long time. At this point, for at least about a decade. So I got a lot of wisdom to give to players when it comes to those, especially those that they know about the tournament scene, but they're scared to jump into the water and be competitive and join tournaments. So I'm just hoping that this cast can help them do that and help them become comfortable and eventually start participating in tournaments, because tournaments can be fun. Tournaments do a lot of things. Tournaments creates competition. Being competitive can create hype, can create fun, laughs, all types of emotion. So tournaments are a treat. I try to tell people that when they ask me about what I do, because I even have family members that ask, how do these tournaments work? And they may not necessarily want to play, but just giving them that insight. So the insight is cool to give. Said the money is the issue for me with majors. Well, that goes more so toward planning, and I can even give you a thing for that. It said final round of Evo is coming up. I may register for one of them. Well, if you're at either one of those, be sure to say what up to me, because I'm planning to be at both of those if things pan out right. So far, it's looking straight. But yeah, as far as the planning, I'll give you a quick insight. Now, most of these majors, they're usually annually. And they usually happen around the same time of the year. Now I know things like the IRL stuff, could be a factor, like things like money, employment, things like that can all go into play. But the best way to even set yourself up to deal with that is, okay, I know this tournament is coming up at this point of the year. I need to start saving. I need to start planning for this, and this. Because I'm not going to hold you up. Traveling to majors can be, it's going to cost, but this is video games in general are going to cost. Let's be real. This is an expensive hobby that we do. You have to buy systems, you have to buy games, you have to buy controllers, you have to buy DLC, you have to have internet. This is an expensive hobby. But it's a fun hobby, but it's expensive. And you have to be ready for those expenses. Same with tournament. Tournaments can be, there's costs there. And you have to prep for it. You have to know, okay, how I'm going to get there, room and board, have money for food, maybe extracurricular activities after the tournament, things like that. All these things had to go into consideration. Yeah, that all goes into play. Are you talking about the TWT? Oh yeah, it's in New Orleans. I'm definitely going. That's only like a 2-hour flight for me, I believe. So I'm definitely trying to go. TWT finals here in America, and it's only 2 hours away flying. Man, I'm there. Oh yeah, Para. Like I said, I know IRL stuff can vary from person to person. So obviously you have to be prepared to get ready to do. You have to be prepared to do that. So when you can, take those things into consideration. Once you find out the date of said event, start saving for it. Because by the time the event rolls around, you'll been and had the money for it. Now it's not a stress to deal with. Planning is everything. So that helps. But back to what we were saying on the advanced letters, the consistency. Oh yeah, no problem, Pierre. But yeah, consistency is pretty much just applying everything that I've said thus far. And we all know when you're consistent with anything, you start to see results. Like even personally as a player, not even just tournaments, but as a player, when you're consistent, you start to see that growth in your skill. You start to see that growth. You're beating players that you used to have issues with, like consistency. Same way with tournaments. You're applying everything that was mentioned. You're creating and sustaining those connections. You got your training partners. You build relationships with the venue. You're asking questions. You're prepping yourself better for the event. You're doing all these things over and over and over, and now tournaments are getting better for you. You're making through them easier. Your results are getting better. You maybe even win. And this doesn't matter what type of tournament it is, whether it's local, regional, or major. These things can be applied at whatever level tournament that you compete in, because it's a tournament mentality. So your locals are a tournament, your regionals are a tournament, majors are a tournament. So this is going to work for any and every type of event mentioned. It does not matter. If you are consistent, it'll work. It's just people have to realize you have to put in the footwork, and that's with anything in life. If you want to see some type of success, like you want that promo at your job, you got to put the work in to get it. Then your higher heads start seeing you putting this work in, you being consistent. You know what, man? We want to offer you this position, etc., etc., etc. Same thing applies. I'm doing all this work consistently. I'm seeing improvement in my tourney performance. My results are getting better. I got good relationships with TOs. Made a lot of friends. I got a lot of training partners I can play with. Like you're starting to see growth in all these areas because you're being consistent. The consistency is there, and you're doing what you need to do, and you're doing what it takes to be better as far as tournament mentality. Now, next is the final part, victory. And victory is just pretty much what the consistency brings. You finally see the change. You finally see what you've been working so hard for. Like for that beginner player, as I mentioned early on. Oh yeah, I'm no longer going 0-2. No longer going 1-2. I'm no longer going 2-2. I'm no longer going, oh man, I won this event, or oh man, I beat this person, or oh man, all of this falls to that. And I put this part in advance because you're not gonna see victory until you see advancement. Therefore, which is why that's here, and that's the very last one. Remember that progressive ladder that I mentioned? This is reaching the end of it, and you reach the roof, and you see the sun and all that type of shit. Like that's that part. So, and it feels good. It doesn't matter necessarily what the ending result is, as long as it's that victory. Like I literally just mentioned, I'm no longer going 1-2, or man, I beat the demon that put me down, such and such. Like it's the victory and fulfillment of completing said task. And doing this, like I said, tournaments will get better and better for you. Now, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. Of course, if you wanted more, you may be disappointed that you didn't achieve that, but again, be consistent and keep pushing and working toward it, and eventually you'll Alex, thanks for the host, appreciate it, man. But being consistent, you're going to see that victory that you ultimately strive for. And I said, doesn't matter what stage or what you pull off or what you achieve, as long as it's victory. And then eventually you will, as you get better and better and better and further advance, hey, you may start winning tournaments. You may go to a major and finally, make it out of the pools in that major, or make it to your top 48, top 32, however far you make it, top 8, and hell, maybe even win a major. So whatever you set that to. And that's pretty much all of it in a nutshell, as far as dealing with and navigating tournaments. It's definitely a process. It's like I said, as far as growing as a player personally or internally, dealing with tournaments, it's a process as well. That's why you have a difference between a player that's, they're great in casuals, but they're not that hot in tournament. It's a process of building. You have to build doing both of them. Growing as a player, and then growing, being better in tournaments. And, a lot of these players that y'all look up to and admire went through this very same process. That's the one thing that I don't want any player to lose sight of, is that no one went through this. No, we all went through this. Everything that I explained in this entire cast, every player has went through it. So your Sonic Foxes, your Anakins, your Justin Wongs, Yipes, Sanford, Cuddlecore, Shadow 20Z, Arslan, Ash. The names just go on and on. I could bring up a whole lot of names, but y'all get the point. They all go through this. We all, as players that aspire to compete. Now, even Taquito went through it, man. But I get you being funny. But yeah, we all deal with this and go through it. It's a process. So this is why I try to tell players, do not get discouraged, because all of us went through this. We all went through that point where we had to grow and further push to get better at playing in these tournaments. It's important that you realize that. Pretty much in basic terms speaking, we're all human and we're all players. That's the one thing that we have in common. We are all fighting game players. We are all in the FGC. So always remember to keep that in mind. And I'm probably going to open up this part of the stream for direct questions, or if you want to just share your own personal tournament experiences, and I don't know, maybe get some insight as far as what's something I could do to help me in tournament, or stuff like that. And, we got the tunes. We got the tunes in the background. We vibing. So, which is always going to be a given when you come to my stream. I'm going to vibe good no matter what. Because that's another thing I love outside of fighting games. I love music. So, So appreciate this type of content. Hey man, I'm trying to get on my grind and not just play and stream, because I know a lot of y'all love seeing the Lars gameplay and all that, but I also want to create this type of content and further build my brand too, because I recognize especially as of like the recent year, how much of a name I've became and how many supporters I got and stuff like that. So in order to further service you guys and further put out content and perform in tournaments, stuff like that, I recognize that responsibility. So and I enjoy it, personally. That's really the main reason why I do it. I enjoy it. You gotta enjoy it. You're never gonna do nothing that you don't enjoy doing. So yeah, but if any of you guys have questions or want to share a tournament experience and possibly get some insight on further insight, that's all good. Because I'm definitely, one thing I do like hearing is tournament stories and experience. See, I think you have a lot of knowledge to give out as a player, and really appreciate. Hey man, like I said, I've been doing this for a little grip now, for at least about a decade now. So I definitely got some gems to give. So especially for the new, I really try to foster the newer guys, because again, they're getting their feet wet. So I try to make them dealing with coming in the tournament, coming into the FGC, coming into the competitive environment as easy as possible, because it can be intimidating. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. It can be intimidating because you have a lot of players who come to tournament and they get starstruck, even like they see their favorite players that they watch on stream all the time and feel like, oh, I don't know if I could have approached and said hi, or I was nervous. And it's like, no, I'm not trying to be that unapproachable guy. Look, I talk to you like we've been homeboys, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to make that inviting feel, make you feel comfortable so you can keep coming back to the point you're a regular, and then it's just regular. And then you actually are a homeboy, and or a homeboy, homegirl, whatever it is, and you continue to come to events. You continue to enjoy the tournaments. You continue loving being around that environment. Oh yeah, Megas, this is just episode 1. This is just episode 1. This will be a regular thing. I'm I'm gonna make it, this time slot Saturday mornings, just to start the day off and get the day going. So as you see, we got the chill music in the background. So I'm definitely gonna be consistently doing this. This is a project that I always been wanting to do, but just things didn't always align. And now things are finally aligning, so now I can finally invest and put into this. So this is episode 1. I'm glad that you guys came here. You guys enjoyed this. Like I said, I'm definitely going to be consistently doing this and providing content like this. I'm even some of the things that I talked about during this podcast, I may do whole episodes on just to further help you guys. Like I've already plotted episode 2, and that episode will be speaking on studying footage, not even necessarily for tournament, but tournament will be a part of it, but allowing yourself growth overall. See, how do you deal with stress from the game? I think I might have some competitive anxiety from time to time. Okay, Panther, that's actually a very good question. Very good question, which goes to, the intermediate part of the stream where we always ask questions. So, Panther, one of the things that I do, and some people may find it corny or, oh, no, that don't really work, is literally to take a few breaths and refocus yourself. If it's one thing, like I got an Apple Watch. Right? I even wear it sometimes when I'm at tournament. And when I'm stressed or I'm beginning to feel anxiety, my watch will beep. And then the breathe icon will come up telling me to breathe and regain composure. Like if y'all ever watched me in tournament, like case in point, people always talk about, when I'm rocking the hoodie or got my hat over my head and stuff like that, and I'm sitting there and I'm breathing in between matches and like maintaining like my calm factor, because it's impossible to play a match and you like Panther mentioned, you're overly anxious, stressed out, you all those things. It's impossible to play like that. It's too hard to play like that. You play terrible when you play like that. And I'm not gonna say I perfectly do that every time, because sometimes things like stuff that happen in real life may still mess me up at times, but even then I still try to breathe and I pretty much take it from there. And whatever happens. That's pretty much the way you gotta approach that. Whatever happens, because once you get better at accepting that, because a lot of players, they pressure themselves, which is what I mentioned as far as in the earlier part of the cast about being a beginner. Do not overly weigh your mind with pressure, meaning, I gotta make top 3, I gotta win the tournament, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Just breathe and perform. Those things will come. They will come. If you do what you need to do, those things will naturally come. When you notice anything in life, when you force something, it usually fails, right? Usually. Because you're overly putting pressure and you're overly trying to assert or insert yourself in some type of way. Like it's not naturally happening. Like, case in point, if you're dealing with a female if you come on too strong or you try to force your way in, that female is usually pushed away. Right? In most cases, that's what the case is. I can talk even from that personal experience. I've done that before, admittedly. Well, tournaments. If you force the whole thought, I gotta do well. Now, let's say you do that. You put that type of pressure on yourself, and then you go into your first match and you lose because you are so focused on making it to a certain part of the tournament that you have not played the moment that's right in front of you. That's one way I try to approach any tournament that I play in. Play the moment. Play what's going on right in front of you. Because that's the best way to assess the situation. Is playing the moment that's right in front of you. So, of course, when you're competitive, Palm215, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. But playing the situation that's right in front of you. Of course, you have the whole mind state of staying a step ahead of your opponent. Yes, that is still important. But one key to being good at adaptation as a player, which is a skill that I'm going to further speak on in episode 2. Adaptation is being able to play in the moment and assess whatever is going on and responding with the response that's needed for said situation. That's even in life. That's problem solving. That's basic problem solving. Oh, I'm met with a problem, and now said problem is causing this obstacle to be put in front of me. Okay, breathe first, assess the problem. Okay, now we know what the problem. So let's take this to tournament matters. Okay, let's use Tekken. Let's say I'm going against said player. Okay, he's a Mishima player. I keep getting hit by a Hell Sweep. How do I lower the chance of Hell Sweep working? Okay, we've assessed the problem. I'm getting hit by Hell Sweep. That's the problem. Now, we're starting to draw up the solution. How can I lower the success of the Hell Sweep hitting me? Now, third, which is the assess part. Now we assess the situation. Okay, so Hell Sweep only. You first, of course, understanding it. Hell Sweep only works at about range 1.5. Yo, Emily, what's up? What's up? Thanks for coming in. Y'all know that is Emily who runs Team Equinox. So that's the team. My sister, little sister, Cuddle Corazon, the bro Joey Fury, Old Sign and Company. Y'all know him. Y'all love him. But say what up to her. I'm doing great though. Great Saturday morning so far. Chill vibes. I got my water, and we talking about tournaments. So, but as I was stating, so Hell Sweep only works at about range 0 to furthest out 1.5. So you have to first realize that. Okay, so as I'm playing, I have to realize when I'm in those said effective ranges. So in said effective ranges, the best things you can do, I'll even give you some stuff I do when I'm dealing with a Mishima player, is, especially if I know they're Hell Sweep happy, oh, I definitely exercise it. So let's say I'm getting hit. I'm like, okay, so you like the Hell Sweep a lot, so this is what I'm gonna do. One thing I do, I check with mids, safe mids, to kind of put you, to check you basically. And now, okay, I done checked you, and now you're at the range where Hell Sweep is used. So now I may duck or twitch duck at times just to catch the attempt. Because one of the important things when you're fighting a Mishima player is catching a grasp of their rhythm. Because one thing to consider about Mishimas, they don't excel in poking. Their poke game is not strong. Mishimas excel in movement, execution, and punishment. That's why if you don't have those kind of things, it's not recommended that you play them. They're some of the harder characters in the game to play. But okay, but back to that, you realize you're in that range. So now you could duck. You could sidewalk to the weak side that the Hell Sweep will not hit you because it does not track. It does not track at all. Hell Sweep would be absolutely cheap if it tracked. But you could do that. Or you could use a low crush move. A move that crushes lows. So case in point, I play Lars. So I know I'm fighting a Mishima, so I know that Orbital will be a very valuable tool in this matchup. So when they do go for the Hell Sweep or they're at that range, I can Orbital and crush it and launch them for it. So it's that simple. Adapting is a very underrated, overlooked trait to have as a player. The greatest players that we all look up to and admire have this quality. You have to be able to adjust, because when you can, especially in tournament adaptation is very important. First off, you playing short, concise sets in 2 out of 3 and 3 out of 5. So you don't have a boatload of time to adapt. Next, you have to be able to stay calm and navigate. It's like a boat going through the water, and sometimes high tides could come, all that could show up, and now you're wondering, oh man, how do I get through this? How do I deal with this? And if you can adapt, navigating them tides are not going to be incredibly difficult. And that's important. And you'll realize once you take that breath, like going back to Panther, because I know Panther originally asked, how do you deal with the stress? That's a way. When you can breathe and assess, oh man, your stress will start to go like down to here, to the point where people are amazed at how composed you are when you play in tournament. Of course, you're nervous, just like I said, we all are nervous. Nobody is not nervous. Every player is nervous. It's just the seeing you sweat factor differs. Some players, you'll immediately see them sweat. Like if you ever watch any players, they sometimes you can see the distraught on their face. Like case in point, you see them playing, they be like taking that frustrated stuff like that. Like their emotions are showing on their face. So now, which is bad, because if you playing somebody and they see that what they're doing is working on you, they're gonna up the pressure even further, to the point you just crack and crumble and give up. That's why it's important to be able to maintain that mental fortitude and that composure. That is important. That is very, very important. But that was a very good question though, Panther. A lot of players, I feel, don't ask that question enough. And I feel that that's a very important thing to know and realize when you're in tournament, because that's another thing that's going to help you make it. Because if you can't make it through tournament, my God, it's going to be, the struggle is real. The struggle going to be extra real. But yeah, great question, Panther. But anybody else have any questions as far as tournament mentality and being able to make it through tournaments. Or if you want to share a tournament experience where you may have dealt with any of the things talked about, the floor is open to you. And of course, we got the tunes by the homie Ginseng playing in the background, vibing. Y'all know I keeps the vibes in my stream. And of course, the H2O, you need that. That's another thing in tournament. Stay hydrated. That's how you help keep your stamina. Your stamina and your endurance up is drinking H2O. I'm starting to do that a lot more for myself in tournament too, and I actually feel better doing that. So H2O, ladies and gentlemen, H2O. But yeah, the floor is open for anybody that has questions as far as dealing with tournaments. What's the prize? I know whether, and it doesn't matter what part of the tournament. It does not matter. Matter of fact, I could even share a quick experience that I had. So this is Summer Jam. I believe it was it 10? Because what Summer Jam are we on now? I think it was 9 or 10. But I approached this tournament. I didn't really get to warm up beforehand. Laycon, is that how you say it? Laycon, thanks for the follow. I didn't really get to warm up for this tournament, so I went into the tournament cold. And that's one thing. If you have the ability to warm up before a tournament, do that, because you want to be as loose as possible playing, as far as being able to execute, carry out strategy, all that. You definitely want to be and have your mind already flowing and focused and ready on tournament. Warming up is important, so that's another tip. But as far as this experience, I didn't warm up, and I ended up losing to the homie Shea from Buffalo. And okay, I said it right. That's cool. Okay, awesome. But so I lost to Shea from Buffalo. He used Steve, and I literally got hit by everything. I couldn't really move, and I lost. Now, I'm gonna briefly mention something else. Now, the homie Sean Wick, or Profinoda, I believe his old tag, but he calls himself Sean Wick now. He brought up assessing using anger and frustration as fuel to play better. This is a unique trait because not every player can do this, because some players let their emotions consume them, and they end up playing worse in some cases. So this experience that I'm telling you about is sort of something that I did. So I lost to Shea. I was frustrated because I couldn't warm up, and I felt I could have won. And yeah, I was frustrated, but then guess what I did? I took that energy. I took a second. I breathed. I took a breath. Went to the TO. Said, what's my next match? And I've done this on more than one occasion. This has actually happened to me twice. But I'm going to tell you about this Summer Jam one too. And I then found out who I had to play. I took a breath. I said, okay, we lost that match. That's over and done with. Let's focus on the moment and what's in front of us at hand. Again, playing the moment. So I moved on to the next opponent, blew through that one. Won that, next opponent, blew through that one. Before I knew it, I was running through opponents. It was a hell of a loser's bracket run. And that tournament, I remember, I made it all the way. I was one match away from top 8. I lost to the homie Knock. He picked Kazumi, and I beat his Kazumi pretty bad. And then he switched to Eddie, and it came down to final round, final match, and it was one of those uncontrollable, unfortunate situations that happened And he even said, man, that was a great match. And you made it this far with just playing Lars. And mind you, this was season 1 Lars. This was when Lars was at his absolute worst. And I made it that far. And that Summer Jam wasn't no hole neither. It was like 200 something entrants too. So to lose my first match and make it all the way to 9th place, that was a hell of a run. I tried. Now the second time this happened to me, this was some years back. This was back when I was still playing Street Fighter V, and we went to Red Bull Proving Grounds in Chicago at the Ignite Gaming Lounge in the city, like in Chicago, like right down the street from that Honey Butter Chicken place. Oh my God, that place is fire. If you've never been there, go there, eat there. Great chicken. But besides that, so we're late getting to the tournament due to trash Chicago traffic. By the time we get there, now I'm hungry. I want something to eat. We didn't stop during the road trip while we were on our way there because we were already kind of running late. We left late, and I get there, so I grab me some food. So I'm sitting down, I'm like, okay, get some food in me. I might be straight when I play. So as I'm eating, the TO runs up to me and said, yeah, you're the first match on stream. I'm like, what? So I'm like, oh my God. And so okay. I'm like, sure. So I end up going up there playing, and I lost to an Alex player. Well, at the time he was an Alex player. I seen him playing Akuma more so recently. I think his name is Stack Bundles or something like that. I know the first name is Stack. I'm not sure if I'm correct on the second, but I lost to Alex, and I knew that matchup. And then I was playing Nash, so I definitely knew how to navigate and play and win that. So of course, again, same as the Summer Jam situation. You know, I'm frustrated because I knew the matchup and I knew how to navigate it and do what I needed to do to win. So at that moment after the loss, yeah, I was frustrated, but then I took a second, took a breath. I walked up to Callisto or Ryan, who is the streamer of Chicago locals. I told him, I said, okay, man, what's my next opponent? And I remember this so vividly. It was a Guile player. So I had to pretty much fight almost the same type of character. But I beat him. Then I had to fight the homie, my dude Mark Macklin, as y'all know him, or Hoodless. He was playing at the time. He was using Birdie. I had to beat him. Then I played a Rashid player. Then I had to go back to stream. I had to play a Zangief player. And then, I also had to play my homie David. I had to play my homie David. He was playing Ken. I beat him. I played the Zangief player after him. And I'm also friends with him now. And I won that. Now, mind you, I'm in losers the entire time this is going on. That tournament had roughly about 78, 80 players at the time. So I fought all the way back and got to top 4. The loser side. Mind you, I had to fight a host of characters. I had to fight Rashid. I had to fight Laura. I had to fight all types of nonsense to make it. I fought 2 Lauras. I was the Laura killer that weekend, though. I beat the hell out of them Laura players. It was I forgot the first Laura player's name. I'm gonna think about it when I'm not thinking about it. And then the second one was Eli Curry. And I beat him. I remember that too because I made one of the most clutch plays. I had the whole crowd going retarded. So you know how lower players like to do the string and then do EX Thunderclap? That is not real. So me having that knowledge, again, assessing and adapting, I'm like, this is not a real block string. I actually have a window to interrupt this. So when he did that, I instantly did super. And the crowd went retarded. Like, not only was that a ridiculous read or recognizing the situation, but that showed your knowledge of fighting the character. So, again, as I mentioned, being able to adapt and assess during what's going on. That's a fine example of that. But just to give my own personal experiences. Because like I said, I've been competing for a long time, and not just in Tekken. I've competed in various games. It's just Tekken is the one I'm most known for. But I've done work in other games too. So now I saw some questions from. We're gonna go to fuck button mashers. I can't say I disagree with that. Nah, the mashers, y'all cool. Y'all like to make my job easier. But anyway, and the Cracker Jack, thanks for the follow. Definitely appreciate that. Appreciate the follow. Fuck Button Masters asks, tourneys can be really long. How do I continue to play strong when fatigued? I kind of brought up the endurance and stamina part. Now, prepping for tournaments is important, especially if you know it's an extremely large amount of entrants, so your day is going to be long just off of that. Make sure you get rest, be rested, keep yourself nourished well. That means drink plenty of this. Don't eat too heavy. You don't want to eat too heavy to the point you make yourself sleepy and you just want to go to sleep. Try to eat light. Like if you can even just an energy bar and some water and some stuff like that, just to keep yourself light and keep your mind clear and ready to focus and run through tournament and play and perform. Also, doing all those combined steps will allow you to stay fresh, and then you playing all these strong players, but you're able to bang with them because you're in shape to play. Who knows? You may be in more shape than them, and then they eventually get fatigued from playing you. But you have to properly prepare yourself. Like tourney prep is important. That's one way to prep to ensure. And then, like I mentioned, the endurance earlier on in the cast when I brought up how us in Michigan we play these first to tens ranking battles. Playing long sets like that will allow you to be able to play in long tournaments because you're so used to playing so many matches anyway. It's gonna feel like just doing that, and that's how you go with that fuck button masters. That's how you do that to keep playing strong when you start to feel some type of fatigue. Like try to drink some water, take a breath, eat something light, something that gives you some energy but not heavy. That's how you can build yourself back up. Next question we have from Palm 215. Says, I always get nervous at tournaments and hand literally shaking. I play better because of it. Sometimes I do bad. And because of it, then sometimes I do bad. Any tips on how to control it? Well, it's kind of like what I just told Mashers a little bit, and what I said about taking a break and breathing and calming yourself. Because hand shaking and all that, that's just your nerves going out of control. You're nervous. So take deep breaths. Chew some gum. Chewing gum definitely helps. Take that sip of water. Anything that'll sit there and help you calm. And if you're in the middle of a match and you just so happen to lose, go back to that character select screen. Take your time. You are allowed that time for a reason. So take it. Most players like to, they autopilot and they just hit rematch. And they could be upset or whatever emotion they feeling at the time, and they play. Now you're going into the next match with a jaded mindset. Now you're gonna play worse than you did the first match. In most cases, it's very rare that you play better. It's rare. And the reason why I say it's rare, because that quality is usually of players that are good at harnessing their anger or emotion, whatever, and turning it into fuel to play. Not everybody has that capability. But for you, taking that time, like I said, go back to that character select screen. People don't know how valuable that is, to take that little bit of time and breathe for a second. You have to take that time. You're allowed that, so take that time. And if you have a friend or a supporter there that's like your designated coach and support, call them there and get some advice from them even. All that time, you're taking the time, you're breathing, you're getting advice from your coach. And, you know, okay, now you going into the next game more calmer, which can also help with your confidence. And then you end up playing better. But that's how you would handle that Palm 215. That's how you would handle that. That is definitely how you would go about it. That's actually another very good question. You guys are asking very good questions. I do like that. Because like I said, that's important. Gotta ask good questions. Very good questions. Very good questions from y'all. But like I said, the floor is still open to whoever wants to ask any more questions, and I will offer my insight and give what I think, or what you know, how you could approach this, or if you just want to share attorney experience where you may have dealt with anything mentioned during the cast, and you know, we could talk about that, because like I said, this is a conversation. You know, I'm not really making this as a lecture. Even though I'm giving advice and tips, I wanted to feel like a lecture. I wanted to feel conversation. We're having a conversation. This is a conversation. As the category says, just chatting. We having a chat. We talking to each other. So I wanted to feel as conversational as possible. Okay, next question we got from the Cracker Jack. You ever study a player specifically in anticipation of meeting them in bracket? Okay, that's a great question. Now I'm going to give my insight on it. I'm going to tell you why it's good, and I'm going to tell you why it's bad. The good part is it helps you in preparation. And we all know preparation is good. This is why Batman is such a ridiculous character. Because, you know, oh, Batman with prep time. Yeah, Batman with prep time damn near wins every time. But that's another issue. You know, we go toss that to. I just had to throw that in as a fun example. But it's good as far as prep, because you have to prep anyway for tournaments. So with said player, okay, you like say you know, let's throw out, oh, I got Anakin in my pool or whatever. So you watch his matches and study his jack or whatever, and okay, so it's good in the sense of having already pre-developed knowledge and thoughts. So just in case what you saw, what you study shows up, you already have an idea of how to possibly deal with it. Now, I'm going to tell you the bad side of that. The bad side of that is the fact that you're so focused on playing Anakin that you don't focus on anybody else in that pool. And you end up losing and not even making it to Anakin. You feel me? It's a pro and a con to this. That's why I always tell players, don't get overly, I got such and such in my bracket. You literally want to take it one match at a time. One match at a time. And then if you do get to Anakin, okay, now what you pre-studied and put together, okay, now this information is going to be useful. Because that information is useless if you don't get to them, because you're never going to be able to apply it. So take it one match at a time. It's good to do in the sense of preparation, but it's bad if you overly focus on playing said player, because now your mind is so fixated on Anakin as opposed to playing the entire pool. So it's pros and cons to that. It's good and bad, but that's my thoughts on studying a specific player as far as anticipating meeting them. I mean, don't get, like I said, it's good for prep because you're going in there, you're prepared, and being prepared means your confidence is higher, right? Because you're prepared. You're like, oh yeah, I'm ready. Now, here's another con that could go to that though. This is that unseeable mix-up that could possibly come out the way. That 50-50 you wasn't ready for. Now you done watch these matches, you done study so hard, now you play them. Now your mind is looking for the stuff that you prepped for, but you're not seeing it. So you mentally put yourself in a 50-50 as opposed to just, when you see them, play the moment. This is why I tell players all the time, play the moment. Play in the moment. Of course, things like staying a step ahead and this and that are factors, but you have to assess the moment that's going on, because there is a such thing as thinking too far ahead. You like 5 steps ahead, and we haven't even reached step 1 or 2 yet, but you already thinking about 5, and then you so far ahead that you blow the match because you were thinking too far ahead, as opposed to just playing out the moment. And then if that step came into play, okay, now I know I do it, but you mentally mix yourself up when you do that. You mentally mix yourself up. That's why I say always play the moment. Just play the moment. Adapt to whatever is going on. This is why adaptation is a very important trait, especially if you are aspiring to be a competitive tourney player. That is a very important trait to have. And people ask what builds that is, no, Fly Impact, I'm gonna get to you in a second because I see your question. It's actually more to it than that, but yeah, adaptation is important. Adaptation comes from a host of things: experience, time, knowing how to study and assess information that you receive, and then applying it in battle. So there's a lot of things but adaptation is not necessarily something you can directly practice. It literally just is build up. You get better and better at it over time. It's one of them things that just builds with time. Time and experience. Those are the two things. Time and experience. Because it's not something you can really directly practice. There are things that contribute to it that you can practice, but the trait itself, it just builds over time and the further experience that you get. So, but that's as far as that, Cracker Jack. I hope that I helped you out and answered that. I answered that as best I could for you. Now we're gonna go to the homie Flying Impact. Now he's saying, how do you create a game plan? I've been playing for so long, but I just play by feel. I kind of don't really have a game plan. I just look what he's doing and try to punish. Okay. Now, yes, adaptation can play into this. It can. Because what you just said as far as that ending statement is adaptive. Observation, assessing, and then reaction. So that's pretty much what you're doing. That's good. But you still can create game plans. So, case in point, let's say you approach a tournament match. Okay. Let's say you are a Paul player. And you like, okay, so you know what Paul can do. You know what capable of as far as 50-50. So now you may, let's say the first round. Let's say the first round of the match. Okay. So this first round, I want to test his knowledge and see what he knows. So you start doing certain things like general stuff, like does the player know how to look for Demo Man, or will the player look for Death Fist, or will the player do, this, that, and the third. Okay, so you test their knowledge and see what they know. They either know or they don't know. That's literally the possible scenarios. It's either one or the other. So you test that. Can they break grabs? Can they do that? You're literally testing their knowledge. And then, okay, so you now see that. Now, next, let's say they show, let's put an example, say they show some good knowledge. So now, next, you have to then say, well, okay, now for this round, I may apply a little more pressure on offense. Yo, what's up, Sedestra? Oh, you ain't too late. We still going. We still rocking, man. We still good. We just about to hit the 2-hour mark. And I'm probably gonna go for maybe another 30 minutes or so. But so you definitely got time. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours. It depends on how good this goes. Cause it's going great so far. I'm actually proud of this first episode. But back to what Flying Impact was doing. So let's say round 2 comes, and okay, I want to put more pressure as far as offense, and maybe start some conditioning. Exactly, Cracker Jack. Exactly. Conditioning is actually important with Paul, because if you can condition somebody with Paul, damn near all the stuff that you want to land with Paul is going, like you want to land Death Fist is going to work. You want to land Demo Man, it's going to work. So again, back to that second round, you're like, okay, I want to put a little bit more pressure on offense and possibly try to condition this player to start to look for, is there a link to this song? No, I'm actually using my iTunes as opposed to directly using YouTube, but this playing right now is a Swum and Ginseng. Is from their Blossoms album, and the name of the song, RPG Matt, is called Been There, but the entire project name is called Blossoms. So if you want to look that up on your like I said, I'm using iTunes, so it's on Apple Music. If you want, or it's on Tidal, whatever your streaming service is. Just type in Ginseng even. You probably could just type in Ginseng and then the project will pop up. But it's called Blossoms. No problem. But back to what we were saying, but like Cracker Jack said, second round, I may want to condition this player to get hit by a Demo Man and Death Fist and apply a little more pressure on offense. So you start setting up. So let's say as a Paul player, let's say you may start doing like down 1. We all know that's a great move for Paul. Quick, safe, mid, and if you duck, you could get hit by it. Now, let's say we start doing down 1 and it starts hitting the person. So now, because they're ducking, now they're like, well, I'm tired of getting hit by down 1 from ducking. So now I'm gonna stand up. This is conditioning 101. So now they standing up. Now that they're standing up, now they've literally opened their legs up to Demo Man. Now, yes, if you know the matchup, you know Demo Man is a possibility. But when you're conditioned, when you're well conditioned, you may know this. But since you're conditioned, you're not going to react the way you're supposed to. Because that's really what effective conditioning is. It's causing your opponent to not react properly to said situation. That's what conditioning is. So you do that. Now they're standing up. Now they're getting hit by Demo Man. Now they're getting annoyed. So now they're going to start ducking. Then that's when you open up another gate. Now you start Death Fisting. They duck, now they eating Death Fist. Now they're in the blender because their mind is just like, oh my God, I'm getting hit by. Exactly. Then you start bringing out other tools. You never dig deep into your bag just outright, because if you show all your tricks immediately, especially in tournament, you're gonna make the match much harder for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Always, because like for starters, Tekken alone is a vast game, so you have a lot of stuff that you can dig. You can go into your bag and dig pretty deep especially if you fully understand your character that you're using and fully understand the matchup that you're going against. So, with all things said and considered, you don't have to use a multitude of tricks to beat everybody, because that's the mentality that a lot of players sometimes have. It's like, oh, I gotta use everything in my arsenal to beat said players. Sometimes, no, you don't. You're making it harder on yourself and you're thinking too hard. And when you overthink, oh my God, overthinking is the #1 killer for players in tournaments. Overthinking. You respect an opponent too much. Like say you playing a top player, you like, oh, they're Anakin, they're Mr. Naps, they're JDCR, they're such and such. They're not gonna fall for this. So you don't do it because you think they're not gonna fall for it. But you forget they're human just like you. They're not gonna always react to something. They're not gonna always punish something. Like, you literally kind of defeat yourself when you do that. So that right there alone can mess you up. But as far as game plan, Flying Impact, so you did that in round 2. Now round 3, they're in the blender. Now 9 times out of 10, they're probably flustered. So you can either continue with the game plan that you did in round 2, or completely switch it up and just start playing even more solid. You just poke and move back. Now they're getting frustrated because they're getting poked to death. Their mind is still in the blender from round 2. So you're compounding that frustration, and they're further, like, they're now, and then they just start throwing out unsafe stuff. Now you just step back and punish. That's literally how you can navigate a match. But there's various game plans. Like I said, it's character dependent, tool dependent, all that. But that's generally how you build up a game plan, especially in tournament. That's how you would deal with tournament. But I hope I answered that well enough for you. I tried to do that as well as I could. Flying Impact. So I hope I helped you out. And I think I saw somebody else say something. Lone Star. Yeah, Lone Star. Lone Star 765 to be exact. What's up, by the way? Said, isn't the meta for good players keep doing what you're doing no matter what, so conditioning is conditional? Yes and no. Yo, Lamel, what's up, bro? Yes and no. Because you can do it, and like I said, it can provoke conditioning. It can. But great players are going to do what's necessary. Like the no mix up, yeah. Yo, Graham Beanie, thanks for coming in. Oh, and happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I hope it's a great day for you so far. But as I was saying, you know what? Let me start playing some Tekken music since we're talking about fighting games in general, but we're talking about Tekken. So as far as that, it's a yes and no, because again, you can apply it, and if it keeps working, don't change it. Like, that's the old proverb, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, that applies. But if they know they can't just keep doing the same thing over and over, they're going to adapt to whatever is going on. Lone Star. So that's why I'm saying it's yes and no. It's yes and no to that. Just to keep that simple. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you do gotta fix it, fix it. So I saw. Hold on. Let's see. Next question. Okay, from the homie Megas. Do I have any type of training regimen. Well, that's a very good question. A lot of players tend to neglect that. So it's important because a lot of players, one thing that players are victims, actually the number one thing that players are victims of when it comes to practicing is not knowing how to practice. And they end up hating practice mode, or they end up just practicing combos over and over. And that's all they do. Let's see. Go into training mode with a game plan. Like, when you go into practice mode, pick something that you specifically want to practice. Like, you want to get better at punishment. So you need to improve. You need to improve your punishment. So go ahead. Okay. What's my punishment tools? How fast, what frame, what can I punish? How good is my 10 frame, 12 frame, whatever frame. Okay. Now you practice the situations where they're most effective. Like, case in point for me with Lars. Let's say I got an opponent near the wall and they do something that's negative 13. I now have two options on block that are effective, which would be forward 2-4 or shoulder. I get a wall splat and I get bonus damage from my punishment. So you have to develop, you have to go into training mode with a game plan. Otherwise, you're just gonna be doing combos over and over, and which is cool because you're making your B&Bs, the muscle memory is getting better in doing them. But then that's all you're practicing, and then you end up leaving practice mode. You do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then you go back in the rank, and then possibly get your ass whooped or whatever like that. And then, that's usually how that works. So you have to go in with a game plan, a training. It's like approaching tournaments. You want to go in there prepared and develop game plans and all that. You have to do that with training mode. So you can say, today I want to practice defense, as far as punishment, movement, knowing when to duck strings. Next, I may want to practice specific matchups, like matchups that give me problems. So whatever characters are giving you trouble, spend time practicing against them. Practice mode is a useful resource for a reason. It's just most people don't know how to use it or don't want to use it. It's a very valuable resource. Use it. But Megas, I hope I helped you out answering that. Always go in with the game plan. It's the best analogy I could give. It's like working out in the gym. Okay, today is leg day, so I got to do leg strengthening. Next, another thing, I might want to, I want to core, strengthen my core. I want to, do this. Now the thing is, you don't get to train against your opponent. Actually, Lone Star 765, that's actually a good point to bring up. In practice mode, you don't get to train against your opponent, but what you are doing is you're building up your knowledge, because one thing to remember when you're playing fighting games is that play styles exist. Absolutely wholeheartedly play styles exist. But every character has general things that said character does. Like, if you're a Mishima player, you're going to see electric, you're going to see hell sweep. That's a given. So the best thing that practice mode can prepare you for is knowing a basic foundation of knowledge. Because you got to have the basics. Because like a house, if a house doesn't stand on a solid foundation, what's going to happen to the house? The house is going to fall, collapse, not build up properly. Things like that. Same thing can apply to this. So if you at least had a foundation, navigating against said player is not going to be as difficult as it was as if you don't have no because you have no matchup knowledge. Because you have players say, "Oh man, I lost. I don't know the matchup." How many times we heard that? Matter of fact, everybody in chat, put one if you heard, "I don't know the matchup. I don't really know the matchup. I lost because I don't know the matchup. I don't know the matchup. Man, I do not know the matchup. I didn't know the matchup. I wasn't ready." We've all heard that. In Veins, what's up? I don't know the matchup. He was doing stuff I never seen before. Like, and whose fault is that? Yours. And most players need to start taking accountability as far as preparing themselves to go against characters, matchups, all that. You know what? I saw one of the homies in the chat request Authentic Sky. So guess what? We gonna do that for you. Here go that Authentic Sky. That was RPG Matt, I believe. Here you go. But yes, practice mode is there for a reason. So it's definitely a resource you need to utilize and take full advantage of, because it's foundation. It builds your foundation, and if you have a strong foundation, then it's gonna be easier. Because what players have to realize, when you have a basic foundation, it's that much easier to then adapt to whatever is going on, because now your mind, okay, let's say your mind is like RAM in a computer. For anybody that knows what RAM is, that's random access memory. The more RAM you have access to, because all RAM is random access memory, the more free space you have, the more you can utilize and use and assess better. So you use practice mode and you have this random access memory. So you go into practice mode. You now had a basic, let's say you had a basic foundation. Let's say the basic foundation, let's say you have, let's use the smallest amount of RAM, just to use a basic example. So you have 8 gigabytes of random access memory. So you now do practice mode. Let's say practice mode takes up and adds that basic foundation from practice mode. That's 2 gigabytes of RAM. You now have 4 gigabytes to intake whatever else is going on. So because you already have that basic foundation, you now have 4 gigabytes, which is a lot, to assess what is going on, to assess the situation. You have access to that memory. You're like, okay, I got the basics. I'm using 2 gigs, so now I got 4 to take in whatever is going on, and boom, you have that free space to work properly. Think of it like that. All practice mode does is give you that base first 2 gigs, 4 gigs, whatever gigs you need as far as that. And you have the rest of it you could just apply to adapting to said match and what's going on. Crackerjack at Columbus, they got something going on next weekend? I didn't know. Just whisper it to me. Send me a whisper, Crackerjack. I didn't know. I was not aware. Yeah, just whisper it to me. Yeah. Legacy knowledge is definitely a blessing. Tekken is a legacy game. Even though there are multiple iterations of it, the legacy knowledge is going to work regardless. Especially if you have years and years of it. Again, goes back to that, that RAM I just said. When you have all of that, now all you have to do is just adapt to how the player is playing. And Palm 215, I saw you say, I hate hearing it's like they don't want to admit someone outplayed them. Yeah, it's a pride thing. It's a pride thing, especially if they have a mentality that they're a player that's, they're quote unquote good and they shouldn't lose. Especially those type of players. It's whack because it's a form to kind of discredit the player. Because in reality, you not knowing the matchup, that's your fault. So you technically got outplayed because you didn't have the knowledge. That's outplaying somebody. People think outplaying somebody is just, they take it very super literal. And while that is indeed correct, that isn't the only form of being outplayed. Like, I got cheesed. Well, yeah, at that time you got outplayed because you did not know how to stop what they were doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, people look at outplay, they look at it as so surface level and so just, it's very bland the way they look at it. Oh yeah, pride is definitely a bitch. Pride can be your biggest hindrance when it comes to growing as a player. That's why you definitely need to toss it aside. Oh yeah, RPG Matt, thanks for the follow, by the way, brother. Appreciate it. But you definitely want to toss that aside because pride will hinder you. Pride won't allow you to learn the matchup because, again, goes back to what we mentioned in the cast, asking questions at intermediate. Well, you lost to said opponent. Okay. Now, you could run across some dicks that won't tell you. And in that case, you just need to do some investigating on your own. But if you do ask the question and said player is receptive to that question, they're going to tell you what you need to do. Especially if they themselves are trying to evolve and get better as a player, they're going to tell you how to beat what they did so they can eventually up their game. When that no longer works, okay, now you're forcing me to open my box and get better. Like I said, pride, you got to toss that to the side. All that's going to do is hinder you in the long run, and you're not going to get any better than what you see yourself reaching up to. Yeah, the key is seeing yourself being better, but you got to get there first. And that's a process. That's climbing that ladder, that progressive ladder that I mentioned earlier on in the cast. It's just that real. There's no shortcuts. It's a grind. And that's not even just in fighting games. That's in whatever craft you want to invest into. If you want to become a better basketball player, a better doctor, a better lawyer, a better football player, better parent, better whatever you want to get better at, you have to put work in. There's no way around that. That's unavoidable. If you want to see any type of process, work and consistency are important. So if you want to become a better player or better tournament player, guess what? Work and consistency. Because that player, it's like, you ever heard of the two type of players? The player with the raw talent and then the player that just works hard. The player that works hard usually ends up seeing more success because they're feeding into they're investing. Like it's like a business. When you invest into something and you see a return from it, you seeing that return because you invested into said product or said business or said whatever. You invested into it. So in this case, you trying to grow as a better player, get better playing the tournament. You're investing into the grind. You're putting in them long hours. You're putting in the research. You're watching your matches. You're asking questions. You're doing all of these things to further push yourself, and then you start to see, as I put at the end of the advanced one, you see victory. You see the victory. Once you see the victory, and for anybody that just joined the stream late, I'll do a quick rundown on what I talked about, because we talked about tournament mentality and how to get better at approaching tournaments as a whole. And the first slideshow was talking about getting your feet wet. I'm gonna just do a quick, synopsis of this. But How do I find out about the FGC? Like I said, joining your little groups. If you're on social media is very big, and it's a big part of the fighting game community right now because it's a way to get information out there. And, information is power. So how do I find out about it? Join your groups. A lot of communities have city-based groups on Facebook. You just join that and put yourself out there, introduce yourself, and network. And then next, am I ready or not? You never really are going to know if you're ready or not until you make that conscious decision to go to the event and participate in the fighting game community. You're never really going to know until you make that step. It doesn't matter where your skill level is. You should be going for the experience, and then you eventually can build upon your skill. So the only way to truly know that is to, as the slide says, getting your feet wet. So you have to get your feet wet. And then next is learning the basic. Learn the rules and ins and outs about tournament. Learn a little basic ground knowledge. How a tournament is, what's the process like? Getting there on time, checking in, looking at your pools and the bracket, knowing the rules and regulations, the etiquette. All of that is the basics of, being prepared for tournament. And then which leads down, okay, you done did the first three, you done found out about it, you done made that conscious decision to, to go ahead and go through with it, and then you learn about it. Now it's time to go to a tournament. And that's the beginner part of tournament mentality. That's the beginner. Next, intermediate. Time to level up and grow. So again, you create and sustain them connections, meaning you meet everybody, you meet the TO, you meet the person who possibly runs the venue, or if that TO is both, where they run the tournament and they own the venue, whichever way applies, it doesn't matter. And you start to meet the community and create them connections and sustain them connections. That's important. Getting to know your community and getting comfortable with coming around. So that's important. Next, finding your training partners to help you prep for a tournament. That is very important. That helps. And these somewhat go hand in hand, but this is more so meeting the people, and then finding training partners is part of prep. Helps you prep. Next is creating goals. So now you go into tournaments, you got the experience and all that. You're like, okay, so 1 week I may have went 0-2. So next week I don't want to go 0-2. I want to go 1-2. And then progressively build. Just create little goals, little hurdles that possibly build up and allow you to, further get better and better at tournaments. And then, of course, the last part of that is always ask questions. I say this because even though as a beginner you can ask questions, the more thought-provoked questions will come at this point because, now you got a little experience, you've been going, you've been doing it, and you've been, you're starting to get a feel for it. So now this is going to start showing up. So then you begin to ask yourself, well, how do I further, prep my mind or mentality for tournament? And ask various players, because every player you ask may have a different answer. So gather up as much information as you can as far as that. And then last but not least, we got to the advanced part, which is now, okay, you beyond getting your feet wet, you beyond that point. So now, but as I state, keep room for improvement. This means always keep the door open. You want to have an open door. I am a big fan of the open door policy. Whether players are coming to you or you're going to other players, to always have that open door to learn, to further grow and progress and further, improve yourself as far as tournament. That's important. You gotta have that. You have to have that. And of course, maintaining the stamina endurance. This again goes into prep for said tournament day. So like I said, you gotta, you know that, you know, okay, this is gonna be a long day. I gotta, you know, make sure I got rest, make sure, you know, I've done all the prep work I needed to do. Make sure that, you know, I stay hydrated, I stay, you know, everything I need to do in order to endure and make it through the tournament. And of course, consistency is just, okay, you know all these things. Now, this is the work ethic part, consistency, which is doing it over and over and over, doing everything that you need to do. And I put it in advance because everything else has to compound together in order to reach this point. Because if you're not doing all that stuff, you're not going to be consistent. That's like a person who goes to the damn gym like every 3 months or so. Because you haven't followed or did the regimen or did all that, you're not gonna be consistent because you haven't built yourself up to be consistent. So you're not gonna be consistent. So you have to get to that advanced point where, okay, I've taken all these things, I've taken the pre-steps to build up to this point. Now I have to be consistent. And then finally, victory. Victory is the end result. Whatever little, you know, victory. I've done it. I did what I need to do. I was consistent. I made this happen. I won this. I did this. I've done that. Victory is literally the culmination of everything that we talked about. That's exactly what victory is. But yeah, exactly, Rodney, or D-Town's King for anybody to know. Finding training partners will also help you stay motivated to continue playing. Labbing is great, but it's always cool to test your techniques with a partner. Exactly. That is why finding consistent partners is great. But again, it's a culmination of both. The greatest result you're going to get is doing both. If you do both, you are definitely going to, again, all the way down to victory, have a greater chance of seeing that victory. It's climbing that progressive ladder, and then you're going to reach that end point. Like I said, you climbing that house of improvement, and you finally hit the top floor. You hit that roof, and you finally see, you know, you pass that ceiling, and you see the sky, you see the sun, you see, you know what I'm saying, you hit that point. It's a culmination of all that. But that's pretty much what the whole cast was about. Like I said, tournament mentality and getting better at dealing with tournaments. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I definitely appreciate that. Oh wait, hold on. One more question from the Cracker Chat. What various scenes have made an impact on me? The Chicago scene for sure. First off, they're like family, especially since they're so close. They're so close to us. Since we're in the Midwest and they're only 4 hours away. I love how they grind. They're very tight knit. They play with each other. They train with each other. Definitely. Also Atlanta. Atlanta is also extended family. Shouts out to the Atlanta folk. Pretty much the same as Chicago. Pretty tight knit. They train a lot. They share a lot of knowledge. Very inviting, very welcoming. You know, that Southern hospitality, naturally. Let's see. The SoCal scene. I had a lot of good experiences out there. Those guys, they can be theatrical. They can, but they pretty much have a mix of what the other two communities I mentioned have. You know, shouts out to Rips, Weekend, MYK, you know, Aries, the homie Tech and Tim, all those people out there. You know, shouts out to all of them. But I pretty much, for the most part, had positives from scenes. I haven't really had too many negative experiences. I've had more negative experiences online, than actual, scenes. If anything, I've had negative tournament experiences like poorly ran and stuff like that. But I'm not really gonna dive too much into that. But yeah, but that to answer you on that, Cracker Jack, that's probably the most positive. Oh yeah, and also the East Coast, not just New York, but the East Coast anyway, Northeast. Like I said, shout out to everybody over there. Definitely great. I have a fun time every time I go over there too. Pretty much everywhere that I go in the FGC, because like I said, it's like an extended family. So I pretty much have a positive experience. So can't really speak too much about negative. But yeah, thanks to everybody tuning in. This was a very successful first episode of Train of Thought. Like I said, this will be a thing. Episode 2 is going to further dive into as far as studying and preparing yourself as a player. I'm going to go into it with vast detail, such as things like how do I go about studying footage, further going into using practice mode, things like that. So I'm just simply going to call it evolution as a player. That's episode 2 of Train of Thought. And it's not going to be next Saturday. I'm probably going to do these every other Saturday. That's the schedule I'm looking at. God forbid, unless I have a tournament or something that I have to go to. But I'm trying to make this every other Saturday. So the first Saturday in March will be episode 2 of Train of Thought. And that will be titled Evolution of a Player. And that's going to, like I said, go into studying footage, doing what you need to do to further progress as a player. Not necessarily just tournament, but as a player. That's the next episode coming for that. But I definitely appreciate everybody stopping in, showing love, showing support. I gained new followers just from this podcast, so that's dope. That's what's up. Definitely appreciate that. Glad I was able to give out the wealth of information that I was able to give out. I hope I helped all of y'all as best as I could. Also, like I said, be sure to follow and subscribe. Also, let me make that announcement as well. Next Saturday, as y'all know, is the Train to Combo Breaker tournament. If you are a sub to the stream and you play on PC, because I did a vote on what system to run it on and everybody said PC. So if you are a sub and can play on PC and will be available that day, be sure to play, because it's definitely going to be worth it. Because first place gets their registration for Combo Breaker paid for. That's next Saturday. Next Saturday, the stream will start at noon. It will start at noon, but the tournament itself will start at 1 p.m. and that's Eastern time. So just base that off whatever time zone you're in as well, because you're going to have to think about that. But that is EST, so 12 p.m. Eastern, the stream begins. Going to pretty much, I might, play a little bit myself, warm up with some people, all that good stuff in that little hour. And then I'm going to actually, in the middle of the week, I'm going to message all the subscribers. And in that message, respond back to me if you want to participate or can participate. But you have to be a subscriber. But it doesn't matter doesn't matter how you subscribe. If you have Amazon Prime and you want to use that to subscribe for free, you enter that way. It doesn't matter. Or you pay for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It does not matter how you subscribe, just as long as you are a subscriber. But yeah, first place, as I said, paid registration to Combo Breaker. So if you can go to Combo. Now, if you win, but you can't make it to Combo Breaker, I then may, to be fair, I may then trickle it down to second place. You know what I'm saying? And then instead, I'll probably just just give you the money for that day, like $100. Like you can't make it to Combo Breaker, but you know I want you for winning. I want to award you in some type of way. So if you can't make it, I'll probably slide the registration to second place if you can't go to Combo Breaker, just to be fair. And then so on. If second place can't make it, then third. You know, because I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to give back in some type of way. But that's only if that asterisk happens. Now, if the first place person wins and they can't go, that's registration, baby. Now, second place, they get $50. So you're still gonna get some cheese. And get a gift subscription to whatever stream of your choice. Doesn't matter who it is, you're gonna get that. And then third place will get $20 in a gift subscription. So top three, you getting some type of benefit, you getting some type of cheese, you getting something out of the deal. You getting something out of it. But that's next Saturday. Stream starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. Tournament will begin at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I will be, like I said, in the middle of the week, messaging all the subscribers, asking would you like to participate in said tournament. And you respond back. And then from there, I will build up like the bracket and all that type of stuff based off the responses. And then, like I said, during that first hour, we will preview the bracket, see how it looks, see if everybody's cool and all that type of stuff. And we'll go from there. Then the tournament will proceed. And like I said, that'll be next weekend, February 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Tournament start at 1 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, be sure to follow me and subscribe on here. Also follow me on Twitter at LTrain_313. Follow me on there. Also follow my YouTube, and this podcast will be put on my YouTube page, L Train's Fighting Dojo. Be sure to subscribe and follow there. The podcast will be uploaded to there. Probably gonna do it right after this is over with, just to immediately get it up there. And I actually have to put a few things up on my YouTube page. I don't think I'm gonna do it all at once though. Probably the podcast and a set that I had with Noel Strife. Those might be the two things I upload today. But yes, this is going straight to the YouTube page. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube page, L Train's Fighting Dojo. And yeah, and also follow my AXL L Train Facebook gaming page. I stream from there sometimes too. I probably will be doing a stream from there, possibly my next stream, just to help further build that page. I'm trying to build that page up too. It's newer, so of course it's still in the early stages. But you know, got about 50 followers on there already, so not bad. But I'm trying to further build that page, so be sure to follow that page as well. AXL L Train, just type that in, and there you go. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. Like I said, thank you everybody. This went way better than what I expected it to, and I definitely can appreciate that like a whole lot. So thanks again for all the support that y'all show, the love, everything is vastly appreciated. Definitely one of the reasons why I keep doing what I do, and yeah, it's all love. So I'm gonna see who is live right now, just to give a little love to, you know, somebody else. We got the homie Sean Wick streaming right now. So I'm gonna send y'all to him since he playing right now, and y'all show him some love. That's one of the homies right there. Yeah, but I'm gonna farewell y'all. I hope y'all enjoy y'all Saturday. This has been Train of Thought episode 1 with yours truly, L Train Locomotive, and I'm out.